Hello friends, my name is David Paulides, and welcome back to Beyond Unknown. Tonight, we are embarking on a journey into the absolute extreme limits of the unexplained. This episode is different. It's built from a monumental collection of listener stories, tales so numerous and so deeply disturbing, they suggest a singular, terrifying pattern. These accounts reveal an impossible reality, a chilling new normal, running through the most secluded and most unsuspecting places in our world. This isn't just about things that go bump in the night. Our listeners, from across the country and even the world, are describing a phenomena that operates with a terrifying, organized precision. We are seeing evidence of a coordinated effort. They speak of the unnatural stillness of the wilderness, where all sound simply dies. They speak of the sudden disappearance of time and encounters with entities that literally bend light itself. We are past simple ghosts or ordinary cryptids here. Tonight's prevailing theory is that something massive, a localized, ever-widening dimensional rift or gateway, is violently opening up across our landscape. This rift is acting as a chaotic, supernatural attractor. It's pulling in a host of entities, from the ancient folklore to the terrifyingly technological. So, dim the lights, lock the doors, settle in, and prepare yourself for the first phase of our descent. Phase 1, the Silent Hunter. We begin where the normal, predictable laws of the natural world utterly fail. The familiar security of nature can turn instantly into a deep, inescapable danger. An anonymous, frightening account from North Idaho clearly illustrates this catastrophic shift in reality. She was awake in her cabin at 2 a.m. in the dead of night. She heard the unmistakable, sickening sound of a coyote being attacked, brutally and efficiently, right near the barbed wire fence of her property. The attack ended abruptly, leaving the woods deathly quiet. But this silence was immediately shattered. The moment the coyote died, the entire environment violently snapped back to life. Dogs began howling. Crickets chirped loudly. It was a sudden, jarring return to normal ambient noise. It was almost as if a sound-dampening device, active during the kill, had been instantly deactivated. Then came the true horror. She heard footsteps on her side of the fence. They were not the sounds of a beast, but distinctly bipedal and human-sounding, walking with clear intention in the pitch black. Whatever killed that animal was now on her property, and it was moving with 2 legs, confirming the presence of an intelligent, stalking predator. This sense of being relentlessly stalked by something operating outside the rules of nature is chillingly mirrored by a listener in Illinois. He was hiking in Starved Rock State Park. He was in an area already noted by locals for strangely high branch breaks and unusual, inexplicable activity, a pre-existing hotspot. He suddenly felt an intense, burning sensation of being stared at and followed from too close a distance. When he spun around, a woman in a bright red coat had appeared from nowhere, closing the distance between them. Her speed was the impossible, defining element. She was moving with the velocity of a full sprint, yet her body maintained a calm, deliberate, almost lazy walking gait. There was no sound. No rustling leaves, no hard breathing, no rhythmic steps. She was completely silent, defying the conservation of momentum. When he turned away for mere seconds to process the impossibility, and then looked back, she was completely and utterly gone. She had simply vanished from the trail. This was no ordinary hiker. This was an entity capable of impossible speed and instantaneous dematerialization, a being that steps between dimensions. And sometimes, this silent stalking culminates in direct, devastating violence. We heard from a listener identified as Jay, who was walking in Battleground Lake State Park, Washington. The environment around him instantly became unsettling. The woods fell into an unnatural, thick quiet, and everything suddenly looked unfamiliar and menacing. He went into an instinctive, panicked sprint, only to realize he'd covered a huge, impossible distance in only moments. This is the hallmark signature of spatial distortion that accompanies these high strangeness events. He was running with purpose, But then he felt hands behind his back. A shadowy, humanoid figure grabbed him and shoved him hard to the ground. The witness reported feeling that the shove was done with pure, palpable hatred and anger. It shattered his elbow and broke his wrist in the fall. A driver who stopped to help confirmed the horrific truth. He saw a shadowy, humanoid figure literally try to push Jay directly in front of his moving car. This was not a territorial warning. This was an attempt at murder by an intelligent, non-physical assailant. The malice behind the attack was undeniable. The sheer predatory intelligence of these silent hunters is what separates them from any normal creature known to science. They are calculated, malevolent, and terrifyingly efficient. We now move into phase 2, the cloaked predators. This is perhaps the most frightening category, involving entities that openly defy the visible spectrum of light. A consistent theme emerges. Entities that utilize advanced camouflage that seems to mimic or even exceed what we imagine as military stealth technology. An anonymous story from Illinois perfectly illustrates this. The listener first encountered the phenomenon as a 5-year-old child near the ancient Cahokia Mounds. She saw it as a strange, shimmering heat wave distortion with a humanoid shape crouched high in a tree, accompanied by a faint, metallic clicking sound. Years later, the sound returned in her backyard. She looked up and instantly recognized the distortion, a crouched humanoid shape on a tree branch, observing her. The tension was broken by her neighbor's dog, a famously quiet animal, who ran out and began barking aggressively and hysterically at that exact spot in the tree. The dog was confirming that an intelligent, cloaked presence was there, waiting, watching, and maintaining its position as a silent, invisible observer. This cloaking ability is not limited to dense woods. In Zion National Park, a listener was in a meditative state when he witnessed the appearance of a huge, translucent humanoid. This entity had impossibly long arms and moved toward him with a strange, deliberate, lumbering gait. It was only visible as an outline, a slight distortion of the air itself. He immediately felt an intuitive, terrifying jolt that the entity knew he could see it. He had compromised its stealth mode. In that instant of mutual awareness, the massive figure simply dissolved. It didn't flee. It vanished into thin air. An intelligence that can instantly terminate visibility protocols. From Ireland, a hiker described a disorienting, thick silence where the woods felt like they were physically closing in. He saw a form about 10 feet high and 8 feet wide. This massive shape was utterly formless, yet moving with undeniable purpose and intelligence. It was only visible because it was aggressively bending the light like a distortion in a shattered mirror. He realized he was surrounded by at least 4 of these intelligent, bizarre forms. The atmosphere grew physically oppressive, indicating a massive energy expenditure. His ears began a deafening ringing, and a strong smell of sulfur and ozone filled the air, the classic metallic odor associated with electrical or dimensional discharge. He lost 4 hours of consciousness and memory before waking up in the rain. He was completely unharmed, but his worldview had been fundamentally shattered. The cloaking phenomenon is also tied to high-tech anomalies. A listener from Pennsylvania described a bright, low-flying light that spent 20 minutes mimicking her flashlight signals. This was an entity, or a craft, engaging in deliberate, complex communication. It then performed a perfect fade-to-black disappearance, activating a high-tech camouflage. She later woke up with her clothing strangely and completely shredded after the incident. This is the inexplicable trauma that often accompanies encounters with these sophisticated entities. We now focus on Phase 3, the High Strangeness Gateway. If a dimensional rift is the underlying cause, it would logically act as a chaotic attractor. This attractor pulls in multiple, seemingly unrelated entities, often causing localized, measurable time and spatial anomalies. The reality we rely on simply breaks down. In Yosemite, a group hiking to Half Dome experienced the classic signs of this chaotic spillover. The return trip took an impossibly long duration, suggesting a severe, localized time distortion was at play. Their friend, D, left for the restroom, and completely vanished for over 40 minutes. He returned visibly agitated and completely lost a significant block of time. His memory was erased for that period, and he seemed physically disoriented, unable to explain why he was gone or why the rest of the group hadn't waited for him. The rift appears to draw in creatures from ancient folklore, proving that these phenomena have a deep indigenous history. In Jeddo, Arizona, a listener encountered a band of little people. They were only about a foot tall, carrying strange objects and operating in a cohesive unit. When she approached, the small humanoids all dropped their items, and then they instantly and seamlessly sank directly into the ground near a sage bush, vanishing as if the earth itself had opened up to receive them. Their immediate, synchronized disappearance suggests a knowledge of a localized portal or a hidden pathway in the earth. The narrator's father warned her that they were a part of Mother Earth. Back in Ohio, a hunter reported the high strangeness escalating on his land after a local cult began aggressive rituals. The woods became a zone of spiritual combat. He was walking out of his tree stand when he heard his father's voice, loud and unnerving, say, "Hey, wait for me." This was a direct psychological attack. The hunter recognized the terror of mimicry, understanding his father was miles away. As he fled, the voice, now pursuing him, began to yell, "Wait for me! Stop running!" The intelligence behind the phenomenon was actively attempting to lure him deeper into the woods, using the most effective psychological tool it possessed, family familiarity. We now enter Phase 4, the canine connection. This is a significant, highly aggressive entity that often operates with high intelligence, crossing into the shadow world. In Georgia, a listener named James moved into a house where the high strangeness was announced by an unspeakable act of violence. His cat was found hollowed out in a locked cage with no blood. This non-animalistic predation, the surgical removal of internal organs, served as the terrifying signpost for the beginning of the intense paranormal activity in the home. Later, James and his brother encountered a massive figure that stood 7 to 8 feet tall with terrifying red eyes. It was accompanied by loud, guttural growling and the sound of something impossibly heavy crashing through the woods. This dogman figure, or something akin to it, operates with clear menace and overwhelming physical power, dominating the wilderness, it claims. Interestingly, these canine figures may not always be hostile. A listener named Nikki was visited by a tall shadow outline of an Anubis-type entity after she kept native artifacts from her grandfather's garden. This canine human figure, appearing in her bedroom, spoke to her with clear, concise guidance, demanding that she put the things back to honor her ancestors. This suggests that the canine connection is complex. It is either a predator, a dimensional creature, or perhaps a guardian tied to specific land and ancestral duties. Our final phase, dimensional spillover, shows what happens when the rift opens right into our living spaces. The invasion is often subtle, sophisticated, and deeply personal. In Pomona, California, a veteran was tormented by 2 small, blurred shadow figures. They were able to walk through locked doors like phantoms, violating his sense of physical security. Their primary tactic was psychological. They whispered in perfect English, giving a terrifying, real-time play-by-play description of his every move and feeling. They were invaders using advanced surveillance. The most compelling case of domestic spillover comes from Elizabeth in her luxury loft. The activity climaxed with a spherical mass of vibrating electricity, a genuine portal swirling in a tapestry in her bedroom. As this energy sphere spun faster, she felt an accompanying sense of terror and a terrifying sensation of drowning, confirming that crossing this dimensional boundary is physically traumatic. The final decisive proof of invasion was found under her queen-sized bed. An intricate altar of rocks, ashes, and burnt candles was found placed in the inaccessible center of the bed frame. It was physically impossible for any human to have placed it there, confirming that an intelligence with non-physical access had been ritually operating in her private space. The sheer volume and consistency of these 80 encounters point toward a single, terrifying conclusion. The veil between realities is thinning, and the anomalies are converging. The dimensional rift theory is the only explanation that connects the cloaked predators, the vocal mimics, the little people, and the physical trauma, all symptoms of a massive reality breakdown. We will continue to map this impossible truth using the stories you provide. Thank you for joining us on Beyond Unknown. Be safe out there, and we'll talk to you next time.